The Vancouver Regional Construction Association's 2022 Awards of Excellence Gala will be held at the Vancouver Convention Centre West on Wednesday, October 26th. Over 600 industry peers are expected to attend in order to recognize individual and company achievements and celebrate construction successes together. The awards are also a great opportunity for companies to demonstrate their commitment to quality and professionalism in local construction. For more information or to register, visit vrca.ca/AOE, call 604-293-6595, or email awards@vrca.ca. The VRCA looks forward to celebrating construction's excellence with you. Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm Digital Media Editor Warren Frey. On this episode, we have excerpts from two different panels from the Mechanical Contractors of Canada Annual National Conference, which was recently held in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Daily Commercial News staff writer Don Wall was at the conference, and he recorded these clips for us. And you can also read his stories from the conference on the Daily Commercial News site. Up first are speakers from the Net Zero and the Role of the Mechanical Contractor panel. In this first clip, panel moderator Rob LeForte explains the overall state of net zero for the audience.
One of the things that I also want to talk about is just the unprecedented demand that's going to be created in this sector from the transition to net zero. All of you folks are already seeing a lot of pressure. You're seeing a lot of demand for your services. You're seeing a lot of requests both from private sector and I'm sure public sector businesses to put more energy efficient products into the built environment. And labor is a big barrier for that I know all of you folks on the contractor side are working through. We do have a lot of big questions to tackle today, and some of those with regard to net zero are as big as, are we ready? Is the government ready? And how will we get there? So what's it going to take? What are the steps?
In this next clip, Corey Diamond from Efficiency Canada speaks to how policies and programs can and should be designed to complement what the mechanical sector is doing to address a push to net zero.
At Efficiency Canada, we work on policy. So our kind of theory of change, or our model is how to get governments to design and implement smart policies and programs. And the smart is obviously where the rubber hits the road, especially for this audience, which is all too rare these days to get something out that is not politically charged but actually makes sense for a sector. But I have a lot of optimism just generally, and not just with the federal government, but with all levels of government in the trend that we're going. And when I kind of step back and try to think about like what net zero means, maybe I'll try and frame it by kind of outlining a few things. So number one is, because the physics of the earth are demanding this type of change, you can't, the activist Phil McKibben always says you can't argue with physics. And you can try and you can do all this stuff, but physics is always going to come back and get us. So because of that demand, there has to be some kind of change or intervention in how we do things. And so we came out with a report last year and just tried to just drill it down to the basics. What is it going to take to basically retrofit every single existing building and design every single new building to be net zero within a generation? So within, what we're talking is within one generation. So if you've got kids, young kids, by the time they are having kids, that's what we're talking about. And that's the period of time that we have that are demanded by the physics that I mentioned. So that is probably the most monumental task humans have ever undertaken, given the situation that we're in and the design of our existing systems. So basically, there's three parts to how we have to consider this. One is obviously the environmental side of it. So we need to get emissions down in Canada to zero by 2050 within this generation, and buildings account for about 1/3 of that. And if you count the electricity and stuff, but it's essentially the third largest of our emissions pie in Canada. So that's pretty big. So that's our task. On the economy side, so that's the environment. But on the economic side, if we do this right, and going back to my point about doing it smart, if we do it right, we've got good, purposeful jobs for people, and we're starting to spend our money on things that matter rather than on things that waste. Economies don't like inefficiencies, and we have a very inefficient economy because of all that waste. So that's the economic argument for it. And more, what we're seeing with our work is the social argument of doing this as well. Going into this direction around net zero has the danger of leaving a lot of people behind. and you eloquently mentioned this boil water advisory situation we're still in. There are many people in Canada who are low income. They are living in buildings that are not operating optimally, and it's not a good look for them. And so as we design these programs, we have to not only just think about the race to zero and the race to net zero, but design all of this intervention thinking about what the good jobs and the economic gains are, but more importantly, or as importantly as those two, what the social side of it looks like. So that's the kind of stuff we work on, and that to us, that kind of all-encompassing vision is what net zero would look like.
And in this clip, Scott Hammond from SMS Engineering talks about what can be done to move to not just net zero, but beyond to future climate resilience.
Beyond net zero and the carbon efficiency, I mean, personally and at our practice as well, you know, we like to look at it as maybe not necessarily what we're going to be doing, but it's why we're going to be doing it. And some of that has to do with some, you know, maybe future climate resilience as well. So we don't like to look at our projects and our buildings just as we got to check a box, we've got to design it to net zero because maybe that's what the client asked for. We really want to set these buildings and these assets up to be there for a really long time. You know, embodied carbon is definitely going to be the next thing after net zero is maybe checked off. Because we got to transition to that, you know, low carbon society. So if we're going to look at moving forward, I just want to show a little bit of context as to what we like to look at when we're thinking about a building's design and longevity. So this is a chart. There's hundreds of these out there, but this is basically showing us previous climate versus where the climate's moving towards. And when we're trying to design these buildings, we're looking at that new climate. The probability of occurrence of that kind of average climate zone, those temperatures we've got, we like to be at, are happening less often. We're seeing much more hotter weather and a lot more records. That's being seen at least in Canada the last couple of summers for sure. But you know, you look around the world and you look at places like what China had to put up with this past summer, and it's just you can't. It's kind of like the physics beast. There's just no reason to try to question it anymore. We need to design these buildings. ASHRAE changes their standards for design temperatures more often for a reason.
In this next set of clips, Woodall of Consumer Focused Solutions speaks in a panel on technological solutions for small mechanical contractors. In the first clip, he talks about how it's important that everyone in an organization be able to use a software platform.
I would suggest it's not just the lowest common denominator, it's not just the technicians, but it's your dispatchers, your accountants, your salespeople, the management. How easily can they pull reports off and actually track KPIs or focus in on refrigerant changeouts? We're all in the midst of changing refrigerants again. And so that's a huge challenge. But it doesn't have to be a challenge. It could be a blessing in disguise if we have a system robust enough to identify for us those opportunities in front of the client.
In this clip, Woodall explains how important it is to choose software that meets the needs of both small contractors' business and that company's customers.
So more than anything, when we decide, and there's lots of reasons why we decide to make a change. We've got a piece of existing software that's not meeting our current needs, and more importantly, not meeting our customers' current needs. We've got a piece of software that's not giving us the pieces to the puzzle that we need as far as being robust enough, doesn't integrate well, all of those types of things. We've got a piece of software that for one reason or another, our accounting division doesn't integrate as swiftly as we would like to see it integrate. And last but not least, it may be too cumbersome for our guys in the field. Maybe there are 20 different things that they have to do, 20 different keystrokes that they have to do to log in a service report. Let's stop and think about that for a minute. 20 different keystrokes, 20 different things they have to do to be able to get this service report done, sent to the client, and working properly. It's important that we make sure that we have something that's going to meet our needs, period, moving forward. So when we put together our plan, we need to make sure that we're considering all of the things that we're looking for. And you should list all of those things. And I would encourage everybody, we talked a little bit about buy-in from our employees. I would encourage everybody to put together a group of people. It doesn't have to be a big group, but you should have accounting represented, sales, technicians, management, certainly all of those things, to be able to identify what they would like to see in a new piece of software or what they're trying to get done. If we're able to put that together, what does that do when we have everybody at least considered through the process? Buy-in, exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. Trying to get that buy-in that we need to be able to put together a plan and look for a piece of software that's going to help us. One of the things we need to consider too is who are we talking to? Who are we considering? Was their system designed specifically for service? Or was it an add-on system for an accounting piece of software or a project management piece of software that they had a need to develop? Was it actually a system that was developed for commercial HVAC or commercial and residential as well? If you're doing the residential side of the business, I had breakfast with some guys this morning that do both.
In this last clip, Woodall stresses that the people developing the software you use have to be just as familiar with the industry for the software to be effective.
Are you talking with professionals that are active in your specific industry? There are people that have developed software programs that are in property management world, or might be focused on the electrical contracting part of the business. Maybe they started out just simply as an asset management team for a university or something like that. At the end of the day, we're looking for somebody that lives in our world. Commercial, HVAC, electrical, whatever you might be doing. So it's important to consult all of those things when we're putting together a plan, or at least you're trying to decide who's going to work with us. So we start with the team. We talk to the field. What are you looking for? What are some of the basic things that you have to have to accomplish what you do on a daily basis? And more importantly, what are some of the basic things that you have to do to fulfill our contractual obligations with our clients? What are some of the biggest challenges we have as commercial contractors or just simply HVAC contractors with our guys in the field? What are some of the pieces of information that are forgotten or not sent to us on a regular basis?
And that's it for this episode of the Construction Record Podcast. You can listen to us on Amazon Music, Apple Music, or Spotify, and we're available on the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks for listening.